Well, Stuart, you've got your man, Daniel Farke. Tell me all about him.
Yeah, we got our man. We took a little bit of time, but we got there eventually. And we're delighted to hear, and we're thankful that he's come. He's the type of guy which I truly believe we needed to look for. A top coach, someone who's proven at developing players, developing team, has a strong identity and a strong way, strong method of work in terms of what he does on the training ground. And when the opportunity come to get him, that's how we did it. Coupled in, I think, all you guys have met as well, a good level of personality about him and a level of charisma. So I think, for our football club this time, he's a really good fit.
One word I've noticed you've used a lot today is that of identity and creating a certain way for Norwich City to play football.
I think it's vital. I think any successful team you ever look at have a way of playing and a real clear identity, none of which are the same. So some of the most, you see how Leicester won the league last year, very counter-attacking, very solid, and that style worked for them, but you could see they worked on that obviously every day, and it run through their football club. And I think it's the same for us. I think we need to bring a real clear identity here, which Daniel will bring and enforce every day, and we'll be able to recruit players into that, develop the academy into it, develop the culture of the club into it, and I think for any successful football club, they have that, and I believe we need to bring that in.
There are countless managers or head coaches who've got all sorts of experience of managing in the Championship. There are those who would think that the German 4th Division isn't the obvious place to look for a head coach in the Championship. How do you come across somebody like this?
Yeah, it's probably not an obvious place to look. I think how we come across it, I've spent a lot of time in Germany in the last sort of 18 months to 2 years in my previous role. Come across a lot of top sort of coaches and got to know a lot of really good people, and we looked closely at the work that Daniel done, followed him very, very closely, watched him work, and we're very clear that this is a guy who can help to sort of take us forward. And if you look at Dortmund as a club, obviously the success of David, the success of Jurgen Klopp, their under-19 coach left this season to go manager of Stuttgart, which is obviously a huge club in Bundesliga 2, and got promoted. So it's a club who seem to produce a lot of coaches, and it's a country who produces a lot of world-class coaches. And I think if you look at the Championship in the last couple of years, obviously you've had the success of David, Jaap Stam, who come from Ajax's equivalent of this team, and has taken Reading to the playoff final, and now Daniel. So I think on a personal level it was an easy place to go and have a look.
People will talk about it being a gamble, but I suppose whoever you'd have given the job to, it would have been a gamble. There's no guarantees.
That's it. I think every appointment's a gamble. It's like every player signing's a gamble. You can do as much work as you want behind the scene. They can be the most experienced, they can be the most inexperienced. Until you start working together and you start having that relationship, unfortunately, you don't know. There is no exact science to it, because if there was, a lot more clever people than myself would have worked that out by now. But there isn't an exact science, and everyone has a risk. I think the key is when you bring someone like Daniel in, is that he's coming into a structure which is healthy, which then let him be the best that he can be, let him get on with his work and what he's good at. And I think we've got that, and I think we've got a chance to grow and make that even better. So, as much as it's a risk, obviously I truly believe will work, or else we wouldn't have made it.
In terms of putting this on the table to the board, as you had to before making the official approach, what was their reaction? Was it one of excitement? Were they? It is an appointment from left field, perhaps. Did you have to do a lot of explaining, a lot of hard sell to the board here?
No, they were very excited, very open-minded, which, it's an experienced board, very experienced board, and, it's quite refreshing how open-minded they were to this. Obviously they've seen it work at other clubs in the sort of recent sort of past, and I think maybe got to the stage of a club of thinking, maybe do we need to try something different. They've also got history of doing it before. Alex Neil was a left field appointment at the time. I think everyone would agree, and that worked well at the time. So I think they're a brave board, and they're willing to back things, and they're willing to try and give things a go, and I think that's really refreshing in today's sort of day and age, when it could be easy at times to make, let's say, a more obvious or certainly less risk appointment in terms of to the outside world. And I think sometimes, though, if you want to get better and you want to strive to be the best you can be, you've got to sometimes do things a little bit differently, and you've got to try things, and you've got to take chances. I think on the risk side as well, people probably forget it's just as big a risk for Daniel as it is for us. He's left a one of the best clubs in the world who are desperate to keep him. He's turned down opportunities in the Bundesliga and the second Bundesliga in the last 6 months. So for him, it's also a big risk, and that's why we have to give him the biggest and most support we can to make it work for all parties.
One man whose name hasn't been mentioned much today is Alan Irvine. Where does this leave him?
Yeah, no, I spoke with Alan 2 days ago to inform him that Daniel would be coming in. Alan was about to jump on a flight to go on holiday, so we've agreed to speak when he's back. We'd very much like the idea of a British member of the coaching staff to help Daniel and Edmund, and hopefully if that can be Alan, great. We have to be respectful to Alan. He lives a long way away, and he's gone on the record countless times of he's at a stage of life where doing 500-mile round trip isn't the most enjoyable. So we've agreed. We said, Alan, you've done brilliant for this club. Go and have your holiday, and let's speak when you're back. You got time to think now. Now who the person's going to be, which is always difficult when we're talking around his future before, because you're talking hypothetically about in the event of we appoint this person or we appoint that person. Now he knows, and now we can take that time to see if it's going to be for him going forward, and we've agreed to speak when he's back.
And just finally, of course, now it's about building a squad for Daniel to work with, getting that all ready for the start of the season. I know work is already ongoing, but what about Mitchell Dykes? We mentioned a month or so ago when we last spoke to you that you were going to sit down and talk to him. Has that happened? Is there any news on that?
No, we agreed to park it until the head coach was appointed. With Mitchell, we spoke with him and said, listen, we know where it's at financially from his point of view. We know where that fits within the club. We said, now let's get a head coach. Let's sit down with him and discuss if it's possible or not. And now Daniel starts work today. We can sit down and hopefully talk next week and start sort of thrashing through some of these decisions, and making some quicker decisions, and get the best squad we possibly can for pre-season, and then work on the squad through the rest of the sort of time we've got. Ideally, in an ideal world, you'd have your squad ready for the June the 26th when we start back. That won't happen this summer for obvious reasons, but it still has to be our goal to work and get that as strong as we can for that time.